LASAN. And this morning we have another very special guest. And I'm very excited about today's guest because we're going to be learning about an area that I want to learn more about, but I don't know enough about. So without further ado, let's welcome Leslie Sidio to the show.
Hi, Roman. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here today.
Leslie, thanks for joining us. We're very happy to have you. Leslie is a laboratory manager from the Environmental Monitoring Division. And we're really excited to have you. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things about the environment and about the lab at Hyperion and beyond. So, so without further ado, let's get started. But before we jump into all the technical details about Leslie and her career, I want to kind of break the ice and get to know Leslie a little bit. So I see here, Leslie, that you are a California transplant. You grew up in Maryland, moved to California in the San Diego area when you were 12. You come from a relatively small family, 2 parents and 1 older sister. You had a horse as a teenager for about 4 years, and you'd like to do that again, maybe after retirement.
Yes, I did. Those were some good formative years, good times with my horse. I got him when I was about 13 years old and kept him until I was about a junior in high school. And, we just go off and hit the trails. We lived in East County, San Diego. So it was just nice and a great thing to do. And I liked it so much. I keep dreaming of doing that again. I don't know if that's in the cards for me, because if I get a horse again, I'd want to have him live on my property. So being in Torrance, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But, it's just something I want to do again. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. I also see that when you were in college, you had a side gig as a kennel manager or professional pooper scooper.
Yeah. Yeah. So I worked at 2 different kennels, and then I eventually ended up moving into one. So I worked for rent when I went to San Diego State. So I took care of the dogs. They were show dogs, and they were Afghan hounds. And the handlers would be gone on the weekends showing either their dogs or other people's dogs. They were professional handlers. So I took care of them on the weekends, and I groomed them during the week after school. I also had my own Afghan hound, which I took to shows, and we went to what's called obedience trials. So she got her doggy degree or doggy bachelor's degree, and we ranked pretty high. And for a few months in 1986, she was #1 in the nation. So that was a cool thing to do. Yeah, it was. I was immersed in dogs when I was in college. Yeah.
Fun. That's fun. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your career. Leslie, you have worked for the city of LA for over 30 years. Take us back to the very beginning. How did it all start?
Okay, the very beginning. So I after I graduated from college and I moved to Los Angeles, um, I worked at the Chevron laboratory. And at the time, I never imagined I would be here working with sewage, but I had a friend that was a clerk typist for the building and safety, and she sent me a message that said, "Hey, Chemist is open for the city." So I went through the process and applied. Back then there was no internet, and everything was like, you'd find out about these jobs on the newspaper. I wouldn't have known about it if she didn't call me. So, I went through the process. I applied and took the exam, and I got in. So I hired in. I walked in the door at Hyperion July 1990, and so that's how I got here.
Wow. And what inspired you to choose this career path?
So I guess, I like I said, I didn't imagine I would be doing wastewater, but when I was, starting off in college, I really started to like the chemistry. I had thought that when I was younger that maybe I would be a doctor or, go to veterinary school, something I had toyed around with, but I really started to like the chemistry. So I chose to major in it. And one of the classes I took when I was in college was a good influence on me. And I took a semester of chemical engineering. And that was an eye opener of a class. Not only did I learn chemical engineering, which was completely different than chemistry, we went on field trips to facilities and laboratories, and and got to see manufacturing places and how they work. And one of them, and it still sticks out in my mind, was a water treatment plant. I don't think it was wastewater, because now I know where it is. It's a Lake Murray water treatment plant in San Diego. And I remember that tour, and it was in the back burner of my mind. But when we took all these tours, I thought every one of these places has a lab. I could work at any of these, and I knew that there were job opportunities. So that's kind of what was my inspiration, was seeing all this and all the possibilities. I didn't know quite where I was going to land, but I landed here.
Great place to land, right?
Yeah.
And chemistry, I feel like that's such a challenging subject, at least when I was in college, it was definitely challenging. Is there like a high demand for those jobs? Because I don't know if there's a lot of chemists out there. I mean, I'm sure
There,
there are, but
like I said, every plant or manufacturing has a lab, and I think there are demands. And at the time in San Diego, it was mostly biotech. So I came to LA mostly because I was on the analytical side. But yeah, there's lots of jobs, and for women too. I mean, a lot of women are scientists, and they found, like, especially the undergraduates at the colleges, it could be 50-50, men and women. So there's a lot of opportunities.
that's wonderful.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about the notable work that you've done for the city of LA and with LA Sanitation and Environment.
Okay, so well, when I first came in the door as a new hire, there was a new regulation that came out from OSHA that demanded that all laboratories have something called a chemical hygiene plan. So it took me about a year, but I wrote that plan and implemented it in EMD. So it's been in existence ever since. It gets revised annually. So that was like my first big project. And I was in that section that was QA/QC and safety. And also during that time, there was what they had were what they called household hazardous waste collection events. That was like in its infancy, and it was just starting in the city. And people would drive to these large places like, convention centers or whatever, and snake through the lines with all their paint and their waste products from their house. And as a chemist, me and another chemist from EMD were placed there. We got the HAZWOPER training, and we were sent to these locations to identify unknowns. So people would bring in jars of stuff that were not labeled. And so what is it? So we had to determine the hazard properties. We had little test kits with us, and we would, define the test. And so the other people could take it and store it properly and treat it. So that was kind of a fun thing to do on the weekends. And we would be in a full PPE and wingsuits and yeah, so that was a neat thing, unless it was hot out that day. So soon after that, I promoted to a chemist 2, and I was placed in the energy recovery building laboratory. And that was part of Hyperion's energy recovery system, where we did boiler testing and testing on the sludge drying processes. I also spent some time at the Terminal Island water reclamation plant as a chemist before it became a water reclamation plant. And then I transferred to the Hyperion the liquid side. We kind of separated those labs at the time, but it was the liquid process control section. And I spent, almost 20 years there. We've had multiple projects we had to do to support the plant. And at that time, Hyperion was being rebuilt, and it was really a fascinating thing to see all this reactors being built, the digesters being built, trucks and trucks of dirt being removed, and trucks of concrete coming in. And it was chaotic, but it was fascinating. Every day was an adventure. Then I promoted to a senior chemist at the process control lab here at Hyperion. We had multiple projects there. And a few years after that, there were a retirement of our division, not retirement, a promotion of our division manager to assistant director, freed up a lot of space. And so there were a lot of promotions that happened. So I promoted as a laboratory manager for the biology section. And that was a learning curve for me. I'm not a biologist, but with the great people there, I learned a lot. And I was overseeing the microbiology lab, the toxicity testing laboratory. We have an ocean assessments group and a boat operating unit. And while I was there, we did there were several projects to oversee. And one of the more prominent one was something called the Hyperion Toxicity Reduction Work Plan. We had to get that approved by the regional board, and it was a 2-year-long plan with quarterly reports. So, we did that. And then I had the opportunity to move back to my area of expertise, you could say, which was conventional chemistry. So as a manager, I moved to the conventional chemistry section. I was there for about a year and a half. I oversaw projects, relating to what's coming up with Hyperion with a full water reclamation. They're exploring the constituents in the water and characterizing the waste. And so the membrane bioreactor project is coming on board. So we did a lot of background tests for that. How would it perform? What the information the engineers need to purchase that, and what kind of operation it will have. So then the opportunity arose for me to promote again to Laboratory Manager 2, which is Assistant Division Manager, and that is where I am today.
Wow, that's quite the journey.
It is. It's 30 years.
And hopping around from different reclamation plants, and the fact that you were able to see all of the upgrades take place at Hyperion.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Pretty interesting. Yeah. For those of us that may not know, what is the main responsibility of the Environmental Monitoring Division? What do you guys generally do? Okay,
so I'll try to keep this short, but also cover a lot of areas. So EMD is the main testing laboratory for LA Sanitation. So in doing that, we do all the environmental tests for several different divisions across sanitation, as well as supporting the water reclamation plants. We have 4 laboratories. The Hyperion laboratory is the biggest one with the most EMD staff. We have 3 other laboratories on the outlying plants. We have a Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant laboratory on site. There are 2 other laboratories on site at the Donald C. Tillman Water Reclamation Plant and the Los Angeles Glendale Water Reclamation Plant. Those outlying labs mostly support the treatment plants, but they do collect samples for the monthly testing or the semi-annually testing and send it to the Hyperion lab, where we have more instrumentation and more intensive analysis for all the chemical constituents. So there can be hundreds of constituents that we test for. So we have what's unique to the Hyperion location. We have a instrumental chemistry laboratory, which has a lot of expensive instruments and that are very sophisticated. We also have a biology section here that is unique for the Hyperion, for this location. So one of the things that is critical for us is we perform certified analysis. So when I say certified analysis, means we are accredited, we have an accrediting body, we have to be audited, we are sent blind samples every year as part of a test to see if we can perform. The tests that we do can be on many different matrices. We do water, wastewater, groundwater, recycled water, sludges, biosolids, sediments, tissue, fish tissue, and gases, to name a few, and industrial waste as well. So, our labs have all the equipment needed for this, and it's very regulated and procedure oriented. I mean, we even have procedures for, even before the samples are analyzed, we have procedures for the collection and the storage and the preservation of samples. So all these things come into play for, regulated environmental testing. We also receive samples from Watershed Protection Division and the Industrial Waste Management Division, as well as other divisions in the city for testing.
Wow, so I didn't know that that you guys have 4 labs at all. Each water reclamation plant has its own lab, right?
Correct. Yes.
And are there chemists, biologists, marine biologists at those labs, or it just depends?
So our classifications in EMD are, we have laboratory technicians, we have chemists, we have water biologists and water microbiologists. The outlying labs, we have mostly laboratory technicians and chemists and senior chemists. We do have one outlying water biologist at Tillman who helps with the activated sludge process and the LA River, but most of the biologists are here at the Hyperion facility. So the amount of people we have in our division, we're budgeted for 114. We have about 94 right now. Our sections can be, we have some of our larger sections can have 20 people, and we have some sections that go down to 4 people. And so we not only do we have labs, we have a lot of support sections that help EMD as well. We have a legal reporting section that helps with the annual and monthly reports for the treatment plants and the reclaimed water. We have a QA/QC and a safety section. We have a LIMS section, that is our information management system section. So we have these support sections that are a little smaller, but they're critical to our operation.
Wow, sounds like a versatile group of team members at the lab.
Yes, yeah, great people.
And I know that your team at the lab constantly samples the water quality in bodies of water throughout LA. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process?
Okay, so we do sample several different bodies of water for environmental testing. I'll just cover a few. We're right here at Santa Monica Bay, which is where Hyperion discharges. So under the permit, we have to collect samples out in the ocean. So we have a marine vessel that's called the Lemur, which is stationed in Marina del Rey, and it collects samples and does testing in the water columns off in Santa Monica Bay. They drop a large instrument on a carousel that has several different kinds of probes on it, so they can test things such as temperature, conductivity, transmissivity, depth, dissolved oxygen through the water column. All that information is transferred to a field data system. They collect samples at different depths, bring it back to the laboratory. There's rig fishing that is done for fish tissue that is analyzed by the laboratory for some pollutants that might be harmful to human health. And they drag a net across the ocean on certain monitoring trawls. They collect invertebrates and ocean dwelling animals, and they sort them out and quantify them and identify them. So there's a lot of, that's one type of sampling that EMD does. We also have a critical part. Our microbiology laboratory will daily, 6 days a week, goes out to the shoreline at Santa Monica Bay, several different stations all the way up from Malibu, north of Malibu, down to South Torrance Beach, where they dip. The procedure is they have a sample bottle and they dip it into the surf at the shoreline and then bring it back. Now these are for what are called fecal indicator bacteria, brought back to the laboratory. That's tested. These are total coliforms, fecal coliforms, and enterococcus. Those results are reported the next day to many agencies, including the County Department of Health. So when there's signs on the beach, that's usually an indication of our work being done, or that they have detected something that's above the water quality limits. There's a very similar program for LA Harbor. We have the Marine Surveyor there, which is another monitoring vessel that does similar things, collects all these samples and sediments. And there is some collection at the shoreline at Cabrillo Beach for microbiology analysis. There's also weekly microbiology analysis at the Marina del Rey. So those are some of the sampling that we do. We also collect at LA River. The upstream plants discharge into the LA River. So our people go there with monitoring instruments, check the water on site, collect samples, bring it back to the laboratory and test it. So that's pretty much about the sample collection EMD does. We also receive samples collected by WPD and industrial waste and other divisions.
Yeah, it's nice to know that we have a group of scientists looking at our bodies of water, because it's very important. Even like, back when, if the LA River opens up again for kayaking, I know there's some recreation zones, so we have to make sure that whatever's in that water is safe, right?
And that's true, yes. The kayaking program ups our monitoring frequencies for the LA River. Definitely does. Last year it was, of course, shut down, but we're kind of waiting for the go ahead right now on LA River. So, we'll see what happens with that. There'll be kayaking again, and our monitoring increases.
It's great to learn about what EMD does, especially when it comes to our bodies of water, because they're so important to our quality of life. I want to kind of switch topics and talk about a very special story that came up at the height of the pandemic. Um, During the pandemic, many frontliners and municipalities were running short of PPE and hand sanitizer. You and the team over at the Hyperion Labs got creative and started to make your own to protect team members. Your product, suitably titled LA Sanitizer. Tell us about how this initiative came about and what it was like to spin up a big production so quickly.
Yeah, so this pretty much started with a Facebook post. My daughter and I were making some hand sanitizer at home early in March. I mean, already in the stores there was supplies were short, and so we found something on the internet and found a formula, and we're making it. And my husband posted it on Facebook, and so that was seen by our assistant director, Masto Giri, and he thought, well, this is probably something that EMD can do. And so it kind of blew up from there, and it really, really blew up. So we had to quickly figure out how we were going to do this on a large scale. I mean, we're not a manufacturing lab, but we assembled a team and assembled the equipment needed. And the hardest thing was getting the materials. We had ethanol on site, but we can't use all of biology section's ethanol. So we had to buy some, and we had a lot of support from the purchasing sections that were working hard to do this for us. And we would find something and then it would be canceled, or find something and we couldn't buy it for some reason, or it wasn't the right vendor, or this or that. And so we had to buy ethanol and glycerin, and we already had some peroxide. And the bottles were really hard to get. So already by early April or late March, all the little tiny bottles that you can buy in the hundreds of quantities were gone. And so some of them were shipped from China, or we were on hold, and so finally all the supplies came in, and by about mid-April we were able to get it all together. And we had people working in shifts, not like graveyard shift, but people would come in and do a couple hours at a time, and it would take over by somebody else, especially when there's a call for thousands for LA sanitation for all the field staff. So so it was all hands on deck kind of thing. We followed the FDA guidelines. There were guidelines for small scale manufacturing that was approved for the pandemic. So we followed that, and the World Health Organization guidelines. So we followed their formula and produced about 5,300 bottles of personal use hand sanitizer, and to the date about 202 or 203 gallons we've made here. We switched up our formula from ethanol to a isopropanol based formula, but we made a lot of hand sanitizer.
That's amazing. And I know the press covered it. I mean, it was just an awesome story, especially at a time when people needed, when our team members needed, to be safe out there, because they were providing services nonstop when a lot of us had to, or a lot of organizations and companies had to stop their own business. So
yeah,
it was great to see that story come into fruition. Okay, so my next question is, are there any new things that are in the forefront or upcoming that your division is now involved in?
Yeah, there is a few things. There's we've been monitoring for something called PFAS under the order of the State Water Board for 3 quarters now. And PFAS is what is a large group of chemicals. They're called per or polyfluoral alkyl substances. And these have been around for decades, and it's a new constituent of concern. Years ago, we were all concerned about PCBs and DDTs. So this is the new forever chemical. So this is a big project. Our instrumental chemistry section is working to develop methods This is a hard thing to do because some of the regulations are like a moving target right now. They're lowering notification levels. So right now, the testing that we're doing for the regional board is we're focusing on 31 compounds out of hundreds we could do, but 31 is what the order is. And so that's a big deal for our division, and getting that reported and you know, done for sanitation. Another recent development with the pandemic is we've been involved in wastewater-based epidemiology. We call it WBE. For Hyperion in particular, we've been sending, was started off last summer. We began sending influent, which is what comes into the plant, the raw influent to research agencies and universities, because they wanted to track, you can track the viral particles in the sewage in it, and they found that it directly aligns with the cases that are in the local area.
Wow.
So this was started off as like kind of study with several different agencies, and SCORP was involved. I don't know if you know who they are, the Southern California Coastal Water Research Project. We do a lot of work with them. But then it turned into an order. So now we are sending these under state order to the State Water Resources Board. And I think there's a national wastewater surveillance system that we're reporting the data to, and the CDC. So the information, everything that's coming into Hyperion, you know, we're able to track, like the coronavirus, I'm sorry. So that data is going out to public health agencies. So that's one of the newest things that we've been doing. There's always
Wow.
something, there is always something around the corner, pandemic or not.
Yeah, it really shows the versatility of your team, the scientists at Hyperion and all the other labs. It's amazing what EMD does for and keeps doing for the environment. And how does it feel to contribute and help monitor the well-being of the environment, especially since it affects the quality of life in so many ways?
You know, actually, it feels good. I mean, this kind of job is you feel useful and you feel productive, and it's directly impacts the people. And you know, I'm sure I speak on behalf of the other scientists in EMD, where um, we see what goes in the water, you know, and what is in there with our own eyes. You know, we do the tests, and we see the results, and we see the reports, and you know, we see what comes into the treatment plants and what is removed and what is not, and the reclaimed water and what is removed, and so you know, we have a good perspective on things that the average citizen doesn't. And you know, I mean, hopefully people will learn to understand that more. But as stewards of the environment, this is like you know, key to us. And um, you know, so we do so much important work here across LASAN and at the wastewater plants, that you know, you go home with a good feeling that you know, you're giving the taxpayers their money's worth, you know. So it's a good feeling. You know, we work hard here.
Absolutely, and you guys are doing great work there, and that's what my job and marketing job is to do, to let everyone know the good work that you guys are doing. So it's nice to get to know all these different areas that you touch on. You know, we're kind of out of time here, but I
Yeah.
wanted to end on a fun note. Um, Another fun fact about you, you recently discovered Zumba during the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So you know, I've been to the gym and I've done elliptical and treadmills and stuff, but you know, it wasn't really working for me. And just before the pandemic hit, I thought, you know, I've heard a lot about this Zumba stuff. Maybe I should try it because I like dancing. And I did go to 2 classes, and then everything shut down. So then I sat there for a while and I thought, well, what am I going to do now? Then I realized I've got a TV out back, and it's a smart TV, and there's tons of Zumba on YouTube. And so I was exercising the back room, and so I think I found kind of a new love, a new thing to do. It's a great stress reliever. It's kind of meditative in a way, even though you're moving a lot. You're not really like meditating, but you can't think of anything else while you're doing it. So all your troubles are just, you can't think about things. You're focusing on your body movements and your dancing. And so to me, it's a fun new thing. I think other people should try it.
Yeah, I tried it, and once you start thinking about something else, it looks like you have two left feet. It feels like you
Yep.
have two left feet, so
Yeah.
it's very relaxing. It's very challenging and
It's
very
fun. Yeah. Yeah.
rigorous.
Yeah.
I see that you're. I mean, you seems like you're very active. You like to ski in the winter months. You like to ride bicycles. You're even a member of the Harley's Owners Group Motorcycle Club.
Yes. Yeah. We
Okay.
ride sometimes on the weekends. We didn't do it so much during the pandemic, but uh, you know, California is a big, beautiful state. We take trips on the bike, overnighters, double overnighters. We've even traveled for a week on the
Wow.
motorcycle. So yeah, it's a fun thing. We're safe.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so last but not least, I want to end this with a quick round of would you rather or this or that.
Okay.
So here we go. The first question. Would you rather travel to Paris or a tropical island?
Tropical island.
Okay. Wow, that was easy for you to. Okay. Would you rather watch a play or a musical?
Play.
A play.
Yeah.
Maybe neither or
Yeah, I'm not too into the on-stage productions, but yeah, I mean,
okay.
I don't, I don't, I'm not musicals now. They're kind of corny, but yeah,
Okay. How about Disneyland or Universal Studios?
Disneyland,
Do you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert?
introvert,
Okay. Spontaneous trip or planned trip?
planned trip.
Planned trip.
Yeah, my
Uh,
husband would agree with that. I don't
yes.
know. Spontaneous, nah, not too much.
Bagels or donuts?
Oh, both. Can I say both? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
you can. You
yeah,
can.
yeah. I like both actually. I know I shouldn't eat the donuts, but I can't help myself.
Yeah. Coffee or tea?
Coffee,
Okay.
absolutely.
TV or books?
I watch a lot of TV, but I like books. I do like books. So books it is.
Okay. Are you a beach are you a city person or a countryside person?
I like the countryside
Awesome.
when I can get
And,
there.
and last but not least, tacos or pizza?
Tacos.
Tacos. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Leslie. Well, thank you for joining me on that fun round of this or that, and thank you for sharing all the wonderful information that EMD does for the environment and for LASAN and for the residents of Los Angeles. And we appreciate everything that you do for us. And it was great to have you on the show. Any last thoughts or words before we leave?
Thank you. And I'm glad I was here to be able to, give people a better idea of what EMD does. And I couldn't touch on everything, but yeah, if anybody has any questions, they can email me if I, if they want to know more about what we do. No problem.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone. Thank you to Leslie. Thank you for everyone to coming and tuning back in. Tune in a couple of weeks for another exciting show of Inside LA